Hello and welcome to this edition of Beacon Hill Update with Senator Jason Lewis. My name is Alan McDonald. I'm the host of today's show, which is being taped here at Winchester Community Access and Media, WinCam, but is being distributed to all of the communities with cable access, represented by Senator Lewis. And Senator Lewis has been in the state Senate since 2014 in this 5th Middlesex District, which is the towns and communities, City of Malden and City of Melrose and towns of Wakefield, Stoneham, Reading, and part of Winchester. And Senator Lewis has had a lot of activity on a great number of issues over time and is currently the Senate Chair of the Joint Committee on Education with the House of Representatives and Chair of the Senate Ethics Committee. And involved in a great number of issues. Senator Lewis, great to have you here.
Well, thank you, Alan. It's great to be with you today, and thank you also to WinCam for hosting. I really appreciate all the good work that our community media stations do. So thank you. Great to be with you.
Well, you've had so much to talk about. I mean, you've been active as the chair of the education issues with what you've done in the Student Opportunity Act to open up access to high quality education for all public students, your activity in minimum wage issues to get where we are today. And I think about the tremendous work, frankly, on the Universal Family and Medical Leave Act, which is supported by both business and labor, which was quite a job getting that together. So we could talk about all those things, but you've made quite a mark, frankly. But let's talk a little bit about.
That's very kind of you.
Well, it's true. And you've just finished last night, even the fiscal year and the legislative session, which has produced the budget for the next year and a lot of other things. So let me open it up to how you feel about what came out of this session with the budget looking ahead and things that really the constituents would really benefit by knowing.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, thank you for that question. So, I think it's important for folks to know that, here in Massachusetts, and that's also true in our cities and towns, we have to run a balanced budget every fiscal year. It's not like Washington, We have to make sure we project what our revenues are going to be. And then we have to make sure that all of our spending across healthcare, education, transportation, housing, everything, all balances out. So that's a very complicated process we go through. Takes actually in total 6 months, and we do this every single year, to put in place the annual state budget, which typically wraps up in June, July. So we wrap that up. Governor Healy has signed the budget, and just to give a few highlights, I really think it's an amazing budget, especially for education. And that's, as you mentioned in your that's been one of my priorities all the time I've been in the legislature. Right. So just to let folks know, this budget is continuing to implement the Student Opportunity Act, which the legislature passed, and I helped to lead that a number of years ago, but it's taking a while to implement because we're increasing the amount of state money we're providing to public schools, especially schools that serve large numbers of low-income students and English learners and special needs. So we're committed to that, and this budget fully continues that. This budget also includes universal school meals. So that means that in every student, no matter what school they attend and what community, they are provided access to breakfast and lunch. Students don't have to, fill out any paperwork. You don't have to prove your income level. There's no stigma attached to being on a free or reduced price lunch. It's a wonderful thing. Most states after the pandemic ended that program. Massachusetts is one of the few that has continued that using state money. And by the way, the reason that we've been able to do universal school meals and other things I'll talk about in a moment is because the voters of Massachusetts 2 years ago approved the Fair Share Amendment. It's also known as the millionaire's tax. And that money that is coming into the state has to be used for education and transportation, and one of the things we've been using that for is to help pay for those universal school meals. Another thing in this budget, which is also funded with the fair share revenue, is expanding access to public higher education. We recognize that critical to our economy and our future and our workforce is we need more young people to be able to access higher education that's affordable. So very proud that this budget now makes all students can now attend community college. And one of our, I believe we have a dozen or 13 community colleges in the state, and they can attend those tuition and fee free. So they first, whatever financial aid, like Pell Grant that they qualify for, they would get that, and then the state will cover the difference. And the nice thing is you can start out in a 2-year college if you, and there's a lot you can do with a 2-year associate's degree in many different careers. But if you want to go on to get a 4-year degree, you can transfer the credits, and then you'll end up getting a 4-year degree from UMass or Salem State, and you've got it at half the cost. So it's a way more affordable way for young people, and they don't have to graduate with all the student debt. So very excited about that we're investing not only in K through 12, but also to make higher education more accessible. And again, that's included in the budget, and fortunately we're able to do that in large part because of the voters approving the Fair Share Amendment.
Well, as long as I can remember, almost, you've been active on the funding issue for public education. As you know so well, the constituents may not remember, but since 1993, with the Every Child a Winner formula for the communities as part of that education piece, we had the same formula for 3 decades.
Right.
And you were working hard right from the start to say you got to realize when you set something 1 year, as time goes by, the world changes around it, and you have to go back and take a look at that.
That's right.
And what you just talked about is substantially past just the formula for funding community by community. I mean, you're into higher education.
That's right. We're trying to expand now. And the other area that I've been more focused on even in recent years is early education and childcare. What do we do with our really young kids? 2-year, well, obviously infants and toddlers, but preschool for 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, because there's so much research that if children can get a high quality start in preschool and when they're 2, 3, 4 years old, it sets them up for success in not just in K-12, but in life. And for many families, it's a struggle because it's very expensive. There's not enough spots available. So that's been a big focus for us at the legislature and the education committee and for Massachusetts is increasing access to high quality early education and childcare. And our state's also doing some amazing things in that space as well. So I'm proud of that also, again, through the budget we just passed.
Well, the proof in the pudding is that the student performance in the state continues to lead the nation in so many areas, and it's a very attractive piece of living in Massachusetts and having an opportunity to be successful after the education is over. Other areas that you're working on to help people stay here and is the housing piece. Every day in the paper there's a story about housing. And I know the legislature is working on things to have more accessibility, more affordability, availability, all of those things. So how do you
that's probably the biggest challenge we have in terms of, we talk, as you said, we have great public schools, we have a wonderful quality of life, people love living in Massachusetts, Greater Boston area, but one of the reasons some people are saying they have to leave, young people and middle income people, is because the cost of housing is too expensive, either to rent or to try to purchase a home. And the problem is we just haven't been building enough. We used to build a lot more in the 50s, 60s, 1970s, but that really slowed down in the 80s and since then. And so it's estimated that we have a gap of about 200,000 units now that between the demand and the supply, 200,000 units in Massachusetts. So we have been taking action to address that. For example, we changed some requirements around zoning. It now only requires a majority vote in a town meeting or a city council to change zoning. It used to require a 2/3 vote, which was too high a bar. We also passed the MBTA Communities Act, and it's been good to see virtually most of our cities and towns in the MBTA area are coming into compliance with this new law that, I think is a reasonable approach to trying to increase some multifamily housing that's near transit, which makes sense to put that housing near public transit. But we just actually last night, we had a very long legislative session, and we approved it's a slightly more than $5 billion housing bond bill. And this was originally proposed by Governor Healy. I appreciate her leadership, on this issue back a number of months ago. The bill was taken up, passed in the Senate, passed in the House. We just reconciled the differences and reached a final agreement last night. It's now on Governor's desk.
Okay.
But that bill is going to inject hundreds of millions of dollars in new funding into public housing to improve our public housing stock for our most vulnerable seniors and low-income people with disabilities. It's also going to support the development of more multifamily housing across different income levels, including for young people, seniors. It's also going to include we have a provision in there that says communities can not unreasonably restrict accessory dwelling units, also known as ADUs. And that's a great way to increase housing supply in single-family zones where you can add an accessory unit to an existing home. It can be for a family member, a relative, or potentially for somebody else that you rent it out to. So there's a lot of other things in the bill also, but those are some highlights.
Well, it's so important. Housing has always been an important issue, and I think at the community level, the issues we've had over the years in the communities you represent have been about how do you keep up with the housing, but it's gotten to be more urgent, it seems to me, recently because of the expense involved in the housing side. That, it's always been a little bit expensive or a lot, but it proportionally now for income versus housing costs.
Right, that's really the challenge relative to the income. People's incomes have gone up, but the housing costs have increased by even more.
Right.
And we're not alone. This is true in New York and Washington and many other cities, including in cities in the South. The cost has gone up a lot, but where we are now in Massachusetts is just becoming cost prohibitive and I very much worry about young people, who come here, either live here, grow up here, or come here to go to college, and there's a lot of job opportunities, and they want to stay here and build a life here, but then they just can't afford it. So this is an issue, a critical issue that we're doing a lot about, and I appreciate also what we're doing at the local municipal level. A lot of our cities and towns are really tackling this seriously, but we're going to have to keep a sustained focus on this.
Senator, let me switch topics a little bit to kind of a broader, not just Massachusetts issues that you are working on. People say to me sometimes, and in conversations, how much can the state do on climate effectiveness to affect the environment that'll make a difference even bigger than Massachusetts? And I know that you've been a co-founder of the Zero Waste Caucus in the legislature and very active on environmental issues, which can make a big difference. But you can talk a little bit about what you and the legislature are working on that will make a difference for us in climate and environmental health.
Yeah, thank you, Alan, for bringing this up. You're right. I mean, the issue of obviously climate change and environmental sustainability is global, but I do think all of us have a responsibility to do our part. And not only does that improve the quality of life, I think, for us in our own communities by making them more green, more sustainable. Ultimately, I think will help save money as well for our ratepayers as we switch over to clean, renewable energy. But also, it allows us to be a role model. We want to show the way forward. So a great example of this is Massachusetts is now one of the leaders nationally in terms of developing offshore wind power. The area just south of Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket that is perfect for installing wind farms. It's just the right depth, very windy. I've heard it described as the Saudi Arabia of wind. So it's really exciting. It's taken a while, longer than we would have liked, but we have our first commercial scale wind farm that is up and running. People probably just heard about the turbine blade, that unfortunately broke off. So a little bit of a wrinkle there, but we'll deal with that. And we're going to build more of these, and they're going to be generating a lot of clean, renewable, cheap energy, and so that's great. So we need to really double down on that, on solar as well. We need to develop battery storage. We need to obviously switch over to electric vehicles. So that's great. We're making progress. A lot more still to do, but one of the areas we haven't made much progress on which I've been focused on, is, as you mentioned, as one of the founders and chairs of our Zero Waste Caucus, is trying to reduce the amount of waste we generate. And in particular, one particular area that I'm very concerned about is plastic, single-use plastics. We are, as we are reducing the amount of oil and natural gas we use, the fossil fuel industry is shifting over to plastics, because that also is made using fossil fuels. So the future for those companies and that industry is they see it in plastics. And so the amount of plastic, especially single use, that is being produced and that we are consuming is just growing astronomically. Most of that plastic gets buried in landfills or gets burned in incinerators, which are often in poorer communities, or some of it ends up as litter, and then it gets washed into our oceans and it causes all kinds of problems in the ecosystem, breaks down into microplastics. So the state Senate a few weeks ago, I was very, very pleased. We passed a pretty significant plastics reduction bill. It was the first of its kind that we've passed in Massachusetts, and it deals with single-use plastic bags, it deals with reducing the use of other kinds of single-use plastic containers, where we have viable, feasible alternatives. So that bill's now pending in the House of Representatives with our colleagues there, and I'm hopeful that they'll take it up. But as we continue to focus on environmental issues, I think keep the focus on clean, renewable energy for sure, but also let's think about how do we address some of these waste issues, especially around plastics.
Well, you answered my question, because it's not only that you're doing things that have an effect in Massachusetts, and that's only a small part of the global problem, but there are examples that others can follow. And with the leadership in the projects you just talked about, that can be followed by others if they're successful. And I think there's good reason to think
That's
there
right.
will be.
And it's great. We also try not to reinvent the wheel here. We look at what's Connecticut doing, what's California, New York, or wherever. We look for good models, not just in environmental issues, but in others as well. So that's a great opportunity at the state level. State government is we can look at other states, learn from each other, and hopefully implement the best solutions.
Well, let me ask, not to jump around too much, except all these things are so important, examples that you and the legislature are setting on gun violence and the reduction of gun violence as much as possible. I know you've worked closely with Representative Mike Day, who of course represents Stoneham and Winchester and is chair of Judiciary in the House, and very upfront on legislation to reduce gun violence. But you've been involved in that too, and the legislature is setting a big example there.
Well, that's another example where we are trying to really be, make sure we keep our own communities safe and try to minimize gun violence as much as possible, but also be, again, a model for nationally as we grapple with this issue, right? And, the reason that I really make this a priority, and really a lot of credit to Representative Mike Day, as you said, he's been really a national state leader on this issue. But the reason, I see it as a priority is because, when I talk to constituents, especially young people, this is one of the issues I hear the most about, especially. And and the reason is, it's very sad, but it's because of the fact that we've had horrific school shootings and other mass shootings, and it's had a big impact on young people, on all people, but especially young people. And they want to say, what are you doing? So while you can still respect Second Amendment gun rights for folks who are lawful owners, but what else are we doing to make sure that we prevent unnecessary violence, whether that's reducing suicides, that's a big challenge, suicides, but and also obviously homicides and mass shootings. So the bill that we recently passed, Governor Healy just signed it, is going to really address the issue of ghost guns, which are unserialized and they can't be traced, and that's a growing issue for law enforcement, so we address that. We also update the state's red flag law. That's the issue that broke down in Maine with that terrible mass shooting up there where they didn't really follow through on their red flag law, but we strengthen it and expand that, so if somebody is a threat to themselves or to others, their firearms can be taken away. There's a legal process to do so. We update the licensing process for lawful gun owners, a number of other things that are included in there as well. But we're trying to make sure that Massachusetts continues to be a place that we just have reasonable, common sense policies in place, and this is about trying to just sort of keep people safe.
It is, and it's about health too, and I have to ask about healthcare because
Yeah.
when you were in the House, prior to your service in the Senate, you've been active on healthcare issues from those days as well as up till now. And there was a significant bill that you've passed this year on healthcare over the financing issues and the regulatory issues, the whole Steward healthcare situation, which is tragic in how it's affected communities in a very negative way with the manipulation, if you will, I say that, of the financial side, very unfortunately. But you've addressed it in the legislature.
We're trying to. The Steward healthcare fiasco has been devastating, and we're very worried about the impact on some of our hospitals and our staff in those hospitals, the patient care. There's several hospitals that Steward now wants to close, but we're trying to address that, make sure at least this doesn't happen again. But there's actually, I think I counted them just before we went on the air to do the show. I think there's 5 healthcare-related bills that are in various stages of hopefully getting to Governor Healy's desk. But one deals with hospital oversight and reform to try to make sure we don't have a repeat of the Steward fiasco. Second deals with trying to manage and control and reduce prescription drug prices, which has been a very big challenge, especially for seniors. So that bill has also passed both the House and Senate, so it's just waiting for final approval. We also have a bill that tries to improve maternal health care. And we have a bill that addresses the substance use disorder crisis and ways to continue to provide more treatment for folks dealing with substance abuse. And the last one is long-term care.
Oh, sure.
Trying to also make sure that we are doing everything to make sure our nursing homes and assisted living are taking the best possible care of, again, mostly seniors, but also people with disabilities. So it's great that those areas have all been prioritized this session by the legislature, and now I'm confident that we're going to get those bills hopefully across the finish line.
Well, there's so many things, and we've only got a few minutes left to talk about so many things. Economic development, you've had a serious bill this year, and you addressed that with the constituents. I know the transportation issues, substance use disorder. You've had a lot on the plate this year, particularly.
It's been a very busy and productive legislative session. We still have another 6 months to go in the session, until through the election. So we're going to keep at it, and hopefully we're going to continue to get some good work done for for the folks we represent in our communities and across the Commonwealth.
Do you find, because you are a senior member of the state Senate, really a leadership person, that you have the opportunity now, as time has gone over a decade in the Senate, to be involved in more things than just your committee work?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be part of the Senate President's leadership team. It means I get to be a voice at the table as we're setting the agenda, what are going to be our priorities, making decisions on bills that are going to come to the floor. And, it does give me the ability to, really advocate forcefully for what I see as the needs, particularly of obviously my district in the greater Boston area, but beyond as well.
Yeah, no, it seems to me that you've always been active for sure, but the range has grown as I've watched it over time, beyond just your committee work, which I think is a real benefit to the community.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And part of this is these issues are complicated, and it takes time to learn the policy, get to know all the relevant stakeholders, and you sort of got to do your homework.
Okay. Well, we're really into what's our last 5 minutes available for this edition. We'll have others down the road as well. But what do you see coming up? As you say, there's another half a year to go in this one, but we're already looking forward, even nationally, past this election. We're looking at the election and then how either way is going to affect where we're going to go. But things that you see an opportunity to work on down the road.
Well, there's never any shortage of challenges to work on, and good opportunities. I think again for Massachusetts. We do pride ourselves on our leadership, as we've talked about, in public education. We're doing a lot now to really improve access to higher education to childcare, what we're doing around climate, and we haven't talked that much today about economic development, but we've also got some really exciting initiatives around continuing our leadership in life sciences industry, also in new climate technology. That's a very fast-growing area that Massachusetts has a real chance to lead in. So we're looking forward to continuing to do that. So I think some of the things we've talked about today, we still need to get legislation done, like, for example, some of the healthcare issues, which we've been working on, but haven't gotten across the finish line yet. So I'm going to be continuing to push to make sure we get that done, and the governor, signs those into law. And then, things we have done, like what we've been doing on the work in our schools, and what we've been doing in terms of environmental work and the housing. The job's never done. As you know from your years in public policy and civic life, you make progress, right? And then you just keep going, because there's things change, and the challenges are great, and you just got to keep going. So what I'm going to be doing this fall is continuing to make as much progress as we can in the legislature. I'm going to have a little more time, here in our district also, to be around and talk to people and be thinking about, as we go forward into the new year and the new legislative session, how, what do we want to prioritize? How do we make sure we continue to really be, ambitious and bold and get things done?
Well, you're in the middle of it. It seems to me we're a political state, as we know, but sometimes in other states, and even at the national level, the politics is confrontational too much, in a sense. This is an editorial opinion, I suppose. But it seems to me that you've been part of collegiality in the legislature, that there was a time when economic issues weren't addressed very much in the legislature in my lifetime, and there's a serious approach to it, it seems to me now, and differences of opinion for sure, and between the House and the Senate for sure. But there is a seriousness, I think, about wanting to address these issues. And the differences of opinion aren't about not addressing.
Right.
They're about how do we come out with something that makes sense, and you're in the middle of
Well,
that.
I appreciate that, and I just, to me, that's of course that's the way it should be, right? That's when you're in government, when you're in public service, you're trying to solve problems, you're trying to make things better for people. That's why I think what frustrates so many of us about when we see in Washington, or even sometimes in other places, where there's just fighting and friction and not sort of a focus on problem solving. But we're fortunate. We have a governor who works well with the legislature. We have, I'm a Democrat, of course, but we have Republicans in the state Senate who I work very closely with on lots of policy. The things we talked about today, in terms of the housing bill, the budget, what we're doing on health care, those are bipartisan. I mean, the Republican senators, for the most part, are totally with us. Working now. They have different emphasis, and we work these bills to make sure we also listen to their perspective. But I mean, generally, we are really trying to be working together.
That's great. Well, it shows, and you're good to come forward and have a discussion so we can keep up with the activity. There's so much going on, and you can only get, in the current news media situation, tidbits, and there's a play to sometimes to the more exciting or make it exciting type thing, but the work is the hard work and to make it happen. And but the results are coming at us, and we appreciate hearing about them. So I want to, on behalf of the constituents in your communities, thank you for all what you're doing, and I know you got a full year ahead of you still, but
well, thank you so much for hosting our show today, and it's great to be with you. And just as a reminder to everyone, I always want to hear from you. You can always contact my office, call, email, through social media. We also have office hours in each of the 6 communities I represent every month, and so people can just stop in to talk as well. And we're going to be doing some ice cream socials in August in our different senior centers, so hopefully I'll get a chance to chat with a lot of people in those events.
All right. Well, to the constituents in Malden, Melrose, Wakefield, Stoneham, Reading, Winchester, thank you for tuning in and spending our time together, and we really do appreciate Senator Jason Lewis being with us, and we'll look forward to the next edition of Beacon Hill Update in the near future. Thank you for being with us.